Hi, Brandon. How's it going?
Hello, Tom. Not too bad. Yourself?
Yeah, pretty good, thanks. Pretty good. Yeah, just watching the budget to see if there's any rabbits that he's going to pull out of the hat. To see if there's any way that this economy is going to start actually going and the film industry start kicking back into life
Yeah,
because
yeah.
it's been pretty rough the last 12 months to say the least. But there we are.
Oh, God, really? That long?
It, yeah. No, I mean, pretty much. I would say end of 22 was when it started, like November, December, things started to get a bit weird.
Yeah.
And then the first, probably, no, sort of January last year was awful. February was good. And then it started getting better. So like February was good, March was good, April was good. May was okay. And obviously the first strikes came in. And then like June, it sort of started to peter out. And then like July, August, September, October were just awful. And then like I had a little bit of a boost in November, and then December was just also awful. So yeah, it's just been very tough. Basically, last year it's very much a sort of survive not thrive year, unfortunately. But that's the same for most people.
Just like all over the place, kind of like a roller coaster.
Yeah, exactly, like a roller coaster. I mean, you expect. I mean, I've been doing this for 15 years now, like, and I don't do this expecting that I'm going to get paid the same amount
Yeah.
every month, and that it isn't going to be a little bit choppy now and then. But yeah, it's just been unbelievable, and obviously the lack of return to normality this year has been weird. I mean, it's been a pretty good year so far, relatively speaking,
Yeah.
but could have been a lot better. And it's certainly not back to where we were in sort of 21 and 22.
No,
So
no, no. It's all starting to pick
there
back
you
up
go.
now. Yeah, yeah. Well, thank you very much for joining me on this call today. So how old was you when you first got into the industry? So, when you first got your, I'd say, proper job on set as DOP?
So like in terms of when I first got my job in the industry, I mean, I pretty much started working for money before I'd even graduated. So, I mean, I was probably like 2021.
Yeah.
So yeah, probably about 20. I mean, it wasn't proper sets, but then I've not also come up in the kind of normal way. So, I wouldn't say that I was good enough to be considered a DOP
Right.
probably until, I don't know, 20, 2018 maybe. So probably about 6 years ago. But like I've been shooting in terms of having a camera in my hand
Yeah.
and operating a camera and shooting since for money since I was probably about 20. So I'll be 35 in about 3 weeks. So probably about 15 years. So yeah. But then only probably the last, I don't know, maybe 6 or 7 years. So maybe half of that I would have said that I was good enough to be considered to be a DOP,
Yeah, yeah.
because it's a different, just because you pick up a camera and know maybe a bit of lighting, that doesn't make you a
No,
DOP.
no. So, how did you first get like your job on set? Say, like the Haunted Hotel. How did this job come about?
Haunted Hotel was years ago. I mean, as in years ago, but also my first ever job. I mean, basically, I did a bunch of work experience. I did some work for the university that I attended. I did paid work for a production company, and then I sideways step in production company, 21. And it was kind of at that point sort of a self-shooting producer
Yeah.
director kind of person. This is obviously way back when. I mean, if you're not asking how old are you, because I'll see how much you would have remembered. How old are you at the moment?
I'm only 19.
Cool. So yeah, like you would not remember this. Okay, so basically the best way to think about YouTube then is like how AI is now
Yeah.
a bit, although AI is in a whole nother, but it's this new thing that came out that no one really knew what to do with it. And like the concept of like a YouTuber as it is now was just not a thing. But what it did present was a lot of businesses were suddenly like, oh, cool, we can put like a video on our website,
Yeah.
and that's really good for SEO. So there's a lot of money to be made, because also you got to remember, like, iPhones only just came out. Like, they're not got amazing cameras. It's not like people can shoot 4K video and like post it from their phones.
Yeah.
It's like there was still a kind of a skill. So yeah, I did a bunch of that. Basically, I made basically corporate video and business videos for businesses essentially for a number of years. And that was sort of my first kind of foray into filmmaking. I learned a lot. And then sort of gradually grew that business, gradually got bigger and better clients, started doing more kind of branded content and sort of more, I guess, kind of like documentary stuff. Basically did that, got sick of it. And then around about the time of the Haunted Hotel, which is about 2017, I started trying to really pivot into trying to be a DOP. Because I obviously had a lot of the skills, but I wanted to just be a DOP. But you can't do that overnight, especially if your only form of income is the film industry, which it has been at least 13 years that I've only made money through the film industry and not through, having a side hustle or another job. So I started doing that, kind of trying to find more freelance DOP work and obviously narrative work, and sort of went from there really.
So I'd say that you worked your way up from starting at the bottom and freelancing and right until where you are now and just looking for jobs.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, freelance is, as I always often joke to my wife, I'm always functionally unemployed. It's just, you're always looking for work, and you're always looking for the next opportunity that comes along, and obviously trying to make each opportunity in some way either as good or better than what you've done before, wherever possible, and then obviously making those kind of steps up really.
I see. Because a lot of people start off as like a first AC or second AC, and then they work their way up from there.
Yeah, that is another route, which obviously I sort of didn't really know, which sounds ridiculous, but I didn't really know that existed at the time. Sort of when I was younger, that you could kind of be a loader or like a trainee and a loader and that kind of thing, because I was in Norfolk and there isn't really much of a film industry scene over there. And it's that thing of, well, I didn't really know that existed, so I couldn't do it, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So what made you want to get into cinematography and pick up a camera and shoot?
Well, I mean, I have loved film for almost as long as I've been around. Like, I remember when I was about 5 years old, in the early 1990s, I got shown The Empire Strikes Back by my mum and dad, because it was on the telly. And I don't think they expected me to really I just kind of latched onto that.
Yeah.
And it just blew my mind. I was like, wow, like this is like nothing else I've ever seen. And pretty much from that point onwards, that was kind of the thing that I liked. So, I was really, as a kid, really into Star Wars, and then that kind of, as you discover, kind of is often a route into film, because it is kind of, it's kind of a canonical text like The Godfather, or like, it's one of those texts that are kind of very important. And so then you discover things like, there's this other film starring the guy that plays Han Solo, and that's Indiana Jones, and that's directed by this guy called Steven Spielberg, and he's got some films that are really good. And then, there's these other films from like the guys that all made films around that time. I should watch those. And you just kind of start watching more and more and more films. So, and I remember quite clearly when I was about 11 or 12 thinking, like in careers at school, it's going to be really boring when I have to get a real job.
Yeah.
And then kind of slowly coming to realize that sort of people did make money doing this. And at one point I wanted to go into visual effects. I wanted to go into ILM, because I used to love making sort of models as a kid. And I thought at the time, obviously before computer graphics came in a huge way, which again, probably at 19, you're like, what? But, obviously in the 90s, up until basically The Phantom Menace came out in 99, like, visual effects, sort of The Matrix and The Phantom Menace, around that sort of time, that was when computer visual effects really kind of came of age. But a lot of that stuff was all model work. And, I was like, maybe I could do that. It'd be fun. And then I sort of, realized that probably wasn't a viable career. I did media and film at college and university, and then sort of ended up doing a little bit of everything. But in terms of cinematography, I think I didn't really realize I wanted to do that until I'd been working in the industry for a while. Obviously, I've been shooting stuff for ages. And I think it was just, naturally, both naturally and as a piece of advice I'd give, is that
as your career goes on and as you start kind of being more aware of the art form, I think you kind of tend to hone down on the bits that you really enjoy and the bits you don't. You know, I did for many years, I did all of it. I got the, you know, I got the jobs in, I put the budgets together, I shot them, I directed them, I edited them, I color graded them, I mixed them, I recorded the sound. You know, I did all of those things, but I think that gives me an appreciation that all of these different aspects are really important.
Yeah.
But I came to realize very quickly that the thing that I was the best at and the thing that I was best at, the thing that I wanted to be better at, and the thing that I enjoyed the most was the camera and lighting, because it's just the thing that it just has always, I don't know, I guess it's always kind of interested me. And for me, it was just the part that I just naturally fell into and naturally kind of, I guess, was quite good at. And that's kind of, I guess it was, for me, it was the realization after I'd run my business for kind of 6 or 7 years that I wasn't reading, you know, Business Leader Monthly or looking like a lot of people that kind of run production companies. There's this whole thing of working on the business, not in the business. So you have to step away from doing the thing that you started the business in the first place. And I wasn't happy doing that. I wanted to be more hands-on. And I was reading American Cinematographer, and I was kind of trying to make these little productions look better, sometimes at the sort of bad, it's a bad thing to do, but sometimes to the detriment of maybe the story or the concept. I was trying to make them look good. And I was like, right, well, clearly this is what you want to do, so this is what you should be doing. Decided that that's the thing I wanted to concentrate on.
Wow. What would your advice be to others looking to get into cinematography?
So many bits of advice. I think obviously shoot a lot, make a lot of mistakes, watch a lot of films. As crazy as it sounds, I worked with some students that were about your age last summer, and a bunch of them were like, oh, we don't really watch films, we just watch clips of films on TikTok. And I was just like, I get it, I'm going to sound like an old man now, but like, I get it, things change. Cinema is cinema, and that is the art form, whether you're making commercials or whether you're making, films, or whether you're making whatever. And like, I think you need to watch films, and you need to see how people that are better than you and that do it, and learn from that. I think, don't be afraid to make mistakes. Don't be afraid to just try stuff, and don't be led by the crowd. I think, unfortunately, YouTube has become, in my eyes anyway, as somebody that kind of grew up alongside it, but was just maybe a bit too old to really kind of engage with the kind of the YouTuber style thing. I think there's a lot of very bad things on YouTube in terms of, I think a lot of these influencers are really only there to sell you product. And I think a lot of the information about filmmaking that you learn from YouTube is essentially copy and paste nonsense that one person misunderstands part of something, and it's then just endlessly copied and pasted. And there's a real unhealthy fetishization and obsession with equipment. I think that's natural. I love kit. I'm not going to lie. I love kit. I love playing with kit. I love but the reason that I love it is that I love understanding everything about it, so that when I'm making something, I can make informed choices about what is the best thing for the product, for the project, and then I can forget about it and let me concentrate on all of the other things that actually make for good cinematography. There's obviously a lot of people, there's the whole ridiculous impact of the creator with people thinking that they can shoot a feature film on FX3, and it's a fundamental misunderstanding of what Greg and Oren are doing. I know Oren, I've hung out with Oren, and it's like, it's funny, and it's like I was kind of having a dig and being like, you've completely fucked it up for everybody, because everybody thinks that the FX3 is suitable for, and it's like, it's not. It's like in the same way, like I'm really looking forward to the latest thing is, obviously I went and saw Dune 2 last night, which is incredible. And obviously the latest thing is that they've revealed that Greg used a bunch of the iron glass vintage Soviet rehoused lenses to shoot a bunch of the film. So of course everyone's going to go out and buy those because they think that will make them Greg Fraser. And obviously that couldn't be further from the truth. No. Greg is just very good at understanding cinematography at a very high level and going, it doesn't matter whether he's not fussy, and it doesn't matter about what tool you choose, as long as it's right for the job, it's the right tool. And that's kind of what this whole FX3 thing and all the rest of it is. And so, my broader point is basically don't listen to in short, don't listen to a lot of stuff on YouTube. Yeah. There are some very good people on YouTube doing some good cinematography stuff, but there's a lot of really bad stuff on there. And I'd say it's obviously important to kind of try things out, but like don't try and copy what everybody else has done. Like, it's important to understand the basics and the fundamentals. And then that would be my other point as well, would be you can very rapidly learn about camera stuff very rapidly. Yeah. And actually it doesn't really change at a certain point. Once you fundamentally understand essentially the exposure triangle and what you have in your disposal with a camera to adjust the image, you realize that cinematography is actually, well, mostly it's lighting.
Yes.
And it's also, working with the director's block and stage and the politics of it. And it's also being a leader and running a team of potentially tens of people. It has very little high level to do with running around with a camera, and probably has everything else to do with, it's working with the art department to make sure that the stuff is looking right, because it's no good if the location is wrong and the art department is wrong, because you won't be able to make that look great. And it's all of those realizations that I think require a little bit of knowledge and maturity to understand, rather than, in my head, it's very frustrating that there are a bunch of people your age that are coming out of university, buying an FX3, being hooked on the rubbish that YouTube teaches them on the whole, and essentially coming out and going, cool, I'm a cinematographer. And it's like, well, you're not. and also, you might be, and you've probably you're a ways along the route to learning what that is. But it's worrying. And I think it's a broader problem also with culture at the moment, is that culture seems to be, being flattened into, it's all, I don't know. It's something I'm finding as I get older, as I get into my 30s, is that the kind of the films that I grew up with, they don't seem to, everybody, I'm sure it sounds like the ramblings of an old man, but like they don't seem to, don't seem to make things like that anymore. And there are the odd kind of bright spot. And obviously June is a particularly great example of that. But for every June, there's just a bunch of nonsense on YouTube, or a bunch of Marvel stuff that is just increasingly feels like it's coming out of a machine, rather than being something that's actually, great. So yeah, sorry, lots of ramblings there from an old man, but
that's fine.
Yeah,
that's
like
really useful.
Just kind of try and do your own thing, and try and like what I would also say is like what older people say is not necessarily true. I've definitely found that, but also like there is a certain thing. Like I remember being 19 and thinking, oh, those people probably don't know what they're talking about. And like there was a lot of people my age moaning about, when I was your age, for example, the Canon 5D had just come out. Yeah. So like and obviously that changed things, massively. And I remember thinking, oh, these guys know what they're talking about. And like in hindsight, I think it was like, they did have much more than like they knew. Like there was so much that I didn't even know that I didn't know. It's that unconscious incompetence. But then equally, you'd also never want to be inflexible and be like, So from your perspective, it's stuff like AI, right? And that's like something that I think you guys need to really be aware of. That I think you need to be nimble and aware that is probably going to be the greatest change, not just to the film industry, but to our civilization, that will probably happen, in a while. It has the potential to completely change everything. And I think that's the other thing. Another massive tip I would give you coming into this industry at the moment is that this industry has always been hard to get into. And this is not just cinematography, this is just the film industry in general. This industry has always been really hard, and it will take everything you have to put into it and then more. It's like kind of, it's the best job in the world, but it's also kind of a borderline addiction. And like, you have to understand that there is always going to be somebody that wants it more and that will work harder and will do it. And it, you know, we'll do that. And it's that thing of accepting that really, unless you're really, really, really passionate about this, that you had that, and you're going to work hard, that you're not, depends, and it also depends upon what your criteria for success are. But if you want to be really successful and you want to get in, there's so many people trying it. And that's the normal state of affairs up until last year. What I would tell people is that you have to work bloody hard. And I've worked incredibly hard, and I still don't feel like I've got to where I want to be at the age that I want to be.
Yeah.
And that is then, you know, if you put that in light of then AI, which has the potential to be blunt, destroy all of the kind of basic work that you could possibly do that would earn you some bread and butter, that would get you your foot in the door of the industry. You need, I think, you know, I hope your lecturers are telling you about this, and I hope that but I worry that things are moving so quickly that they're just not aware of it. And I just think it's being realistic about the fact that, you know, the kind of jobs I was doing at your age and earning a decent amount of money doing potentially don't exist very soon.
Right, yeah.
Because, you know, I was getting paid, obviously what you got to look about, this is 15 years ago, so, you know, inflation has massively changed the value of things, but, you know, I was getting paid 500, 600, 700 quid to shoot and edit some very basic talking head stuff, right? Now, if you think about, let's say it was 500 quid 15 years ago, that's probably almost 750, £1,000 now.
Yeah.
There's absolutely no fucking way in hell that anyone would pay you that to do that now, unfortunately.
It's really difficult now.
Yeah, people, well, the problem is I know professional people who are much older than you, probably in their mid to late 20s, that have got probably 10, 15, 20,000 pounds worth of kit, and they'll turn up for 400 or 500 quid a day with all that kit.
Wow.
And it's like, so this is my point, like, you go back in time 15 years, because no one could shoot anything on their iPhone, no one could do anything like that. You know, you could turn up with, you know, I had probably about 5 or 6 grand's worth of kit at the time, and it'd be like, well, yeah, no one's got the experience to know how to light something. I mean, I didn't fucking know what I was doing at the time, but like, I sort of knew what I was doing more than somebody that could film in like 1 megapixel on their iPhone.
Yeah.
But now, you know, you can make stuff look really good on the iPhone. So it's understanding that is the context in which you're entering this industry. You're also entering this industry I mean, you're probably, by the sounds of it, if you're 19, you're not graduating for a couple of years. So you might have that to go with. But just keep in mind that, you know, this last year has been probably one of the worst. I would say it's up there with COVID.
Yeah.
It's up there with COVID in terms of how. But the funny thing is that COVID helped us. We had a great, after July 2020, I've never been busier for that 2 and a bit year. Until the end of 22, I didn't stop. From July 20 to November 22, I was working like you wouldn't believe. And then it's all come to a stop.
Right, yeah.
So that's, I think probably the age you're at is good, because I think by the time you'll be sheltered in university for another, what, 2 years?
2 years,
2 years? 2 years. So by the time you come out, things will have solidified, certainly with AI.
Yeah.
But I just think it's having that in mind. Like, the other thing, and I'm sure your lecturers probably wouldn't be very happy me saying this. Where are you, by the way? What school are you at? Or what college?
BIM Institute in Birmingham.
You're at BIM.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. So you're at the one I went and gave the talk at the other day. So, or is that? No, I can't remember.
It was it. Yeah.
It was. Yeah. So like the thing I would say as well is that like your lecturers obviously mean very well, but they're not in industry. And I think I found this when I was at university that, you know, if you're in academia, you're probably 3 to 5 years behind the bleeding edge of what's actually happening. So I remember trying to write a dissertation on digital cinema. So this was like 2010. So the Alexa wasn't out yet, but 5D was and the red one was. And I was trying to write a dissertation on digital cinema and the idea that like film was going to be replaced and stuff. And I was told I couldn't really write it on that because they didn't think that that was a thing. There wasn't enough evidence. And I was like, well, there is.
Yeah.
And like, it you know, not to generalize a lot, because my course at the time was also a very academic course rather than a practical course. So there were not people that understood that. But again, this is what I'm trying to get at, is like, it's almost it's up to you to keep on top of what's happening. Yes. And keep that in mind. Because I think that a lot of my friends that just peeled through university, didn't do work experience, just assumed that they were going to peel through university and figure it out at the end of it. They on a whole are the people that didn't do very well.
Right.
And like, it depends, right? You might, you know, who knows what you want to do, but presumably you're doing a film course because you want to work in the film industry. So, yes. So that would be my advice, is like, don't take what they say. Like, they clearly know what they're talking about. And like, if they're talking about something like, I don't know, something as simple as like how to edit something, yeah, that's all going to be correct. But like, the context of the current state of the industry, like, and I mean, this is why I'm trying to get in sort of to do some more talks and stuff, just to try and give that information over, because I felt that was something that was really lacking sort of in my education. I sort of went into the industry and just didn't realize some of the opportunities that were available, or the reality of being a freelancer in this industry, and certainly the reality of being a freelancer here in Birmingham. Because it is, it's not a great scene at the moment. In 2 years, you might graduate into something that looks a heck of a lot better, because stuff is coming. But at the moment, as much as it pains me, I would say my advice to a lot of people would be go to London, because that's where where the work is. But it's also very hard. Like, it's a really hard place to live. It is. It's very expensive. So yeah.
So those students graduating, would you say like freelancing is like the best way, or work experience to get their foot in the door, or what do you think like the best approach is to get their foot in the door?
I think it really depends what you're trying to do and where you want to work. I think the reality is that most people don't really realize is that most of the film industry is freelance.
Yes.
There are very few full-time jobs available in the film industry, and they will not be in the film industry. They'll be in working for a video agency, working for a social media agency, that kind of stuff. And I think the reality is that, without wanting to be disparaging to those people, you're never going to achieve really good stuff working in-house, because there will always be a limit to everything. And I mean, if I was doing things differently now, what I would probably do is I wouldn't set up a production company, because there is no money for that. I might go freelance, or I probably would go freelance. I wouldn't try and work for somebody else. I would probably try and, frankly, come up the traditional routes, which is either go and be a camera trainee and then go load a first camera op DOP in something like bigger dramas. And, you know, sort of maybe throw in somewhere in my mid to late 20s an NFTS, cinematography master's kind of thing. Or I would come up maybe through the lighting department. So maybe try and be a spark or a gaffer, because the reality is that the camera department, like, the difference between what a first camera assistant does and what a DOP does is huge.
Yes.
Like, a first camera assistant it was all about focusing the camera and essentially being the head of what is broadly a pit crew to a Formula One car, basically. That's very different than to what a DOP does, although there's obviously a lot of crossover, and they can sit there watching you work. A gaffer, a gaffer doesn't have a lot of the kind of camera knowledge and all that kind of stuff, but they do know a lot about lighting, and that is fundamentally a much more transferable skill than sort of
first assistant,
first assistant. So I know people that have come up through lighting as well, and I would probably try and do that. And the reality is that increasingly, certainly early in your career, you're going to have to probably have what would probably be dubbed like a portfolio career, i.e. you are maybe, you do a bit of lighting, you do a bit of camera operating, you do a bit of this, you do a bit of that. And that's kind of fine. But what I would also say is like, eventually you'll need to niche into something because people won't know who to call, like won't know what to call you for, if that makes sense.
That makes sense, yeah.
This, people go, I don't know what to call him for. Whereas if you're just this, if you're that guy, like, then people will go, okay, well, and you know, you're going to get less calls, but you're going to get more, maybe the work that you want to do. And that applies for everything, right? Like the kind of, when you get to the point where you've got a portfolio together, you know, you don't necessarily want to put all of it on there. You want to put out into the world more of, you know, the kind of work you want to be doing, for example. And there's all of that kind of complexity about, you know, that kind of a thing. But yeah, I would say do a bit of everything at first if you need to, but maybe think about trying to kind of niche your way down into something, whether that's, you know, being a freelancer and shooting a load of corporate videos or you know, going into camera department, going into lighting department. And I think that's the other thing to realize is that there's a big split. So you obviously got the the film and TV drama side, and then you've got the kind of commercial and then branded side. And they're two different things, and there's money to be earned in both. And obviously I kind of straddle, I have kind of a foot in both camps at the moment.
And so would you say that networking is the most important thing to do when it comes to getting into cinematography?
Well, when it comes to getting into the film industry and cinematography, networking is the film industry is a people industry. It's a networking industry. It's a relationship industry. It's about the old adage of it's not who you know. Sorry, it's not what you know. It's who you know. I mean, I like to think of it as it's not what you know. It's who you know. But then sort of that will get you in the room, and then you've got to back it up with what you know. Because otherwise you will, unfortunately, a lot of people do get away with knowing nothing and just getting in the room because they know somebody, but good old nepotism. And yeah, that's another thing really, is that it is a very nepotistic industry. Unfortunately, there's a lot of nepotism. There's a lot of, you know, mates giving jobs to their mates, and, you know, it can be tricky sometimes. But yeah, so what I would say is, networking, get out. That is number one. You need to get out there and you need to talk to people. And, you know, what you're doing here is, you know, I don't know whether this is part of an assignment or whether this is something you've done off your own back, but either way, it's what you want to be doing, because, you know, you're getting good advice. You know, your name is in my email inbox somewhere, and it's going to be, you know, kind of that's better than somebody not knowing who the hell you are at all, right?
Wow. Tom, thank you very much for taking the time out of your day to talk to me this afternoon. Really appreciate it.
No worries. Always happy to do that. And just good luck, because I you know, to not to sugarcoat, it's really tough out there. Like, it's always tough for everybody in this industry to a certain extent. It's always tough for people your age to get in, but you know, not to discourage you. Hopefully this will be, you know, this will galvanize you and think, right, I've got to work that. But like, it's the toughest I can think, other than COVID. This is the toughest I can think it's been in the industry that I can remember. And it's just not, and it's not just one thing, it's an onslaught of all of these different things. So I just think be aware of that and be nimble in the way you're thinking about it, and kind of keep on top of what's happening, so that, you know, you're not, by the time in 2 years, you're not applying for yesterday's job that doesn't exist, because, you know, you think that that's still a viable option. So, but no, always happy. And as I say, hopefully I might be back to do some more teaching or something at some point in the future. So we'll see. But good luck with that. I hope that helps.
Thank you very much.
Have a great rest of the day.
You too.
Cheers then, mate. Thanks. Bye.
Bye.